This imperial palace was built to project the absolute authority of the Qing dynasty, China's final imperial family. They doubled the territorial size of the empire and drew the borders that still define the nation today. But the rulers of this vast domain were not ethnically Han Chinese. They identified as Manchu, and they enforced that identity on their subjects. This shaved forehead and braided queue was a strictly mandated hairstyle, a visible, daily symbol of submission to Manchu rule. There is no ancient Manchu homeland or deep ancestral lineage. The name itself is a 17th century political fiction, created to bury a much darker history. Behind the polished Manchu identity lies a marginalized, forgotten people called the Jurchens. To understand the architects of modern China, we have to trace their bloodline back to the pine forests and river valleys of the Siberian wilderness. You can see the environment they inhabited in this view of a wooden structure on a rugged hillside. In the 11th century, the Jurchens were a collection of semi-sedentary farmers, pig breeders, and hunters scattered across this harsh Manchurian terrain. They operated as vassal states to the powerful Khitan Liao dynasty, who exploited the divided Jurchen tribes for tax revenue. The Liao exacted a heavy toll, sending armed envoys into the forests to extort materials. They demanded tributes of freshwater pearls, piles of thick furs, and highly prized hunting falcons. Liao officials also enforced control through sexual violence. Messengers routinely traveled through Jurchen villages and demanded unmarried women as guest prostitutes for the duration of their stay. For decades, the Jurchens absorbed these indignities, but the continuous extortion and physical violation gave these isolated clans a shared grievance and a motive to turn their weapons against the center of their world. The fracture between the tribes began to close under a leader named Aguda from the prominent Wanyan clan. He organized the disparate villages into a cohesive military force. The Wanyan clan weaponized their daily survival skills. They took the horseback archery and tracking techniques used to hunt game in the dense forests and created an elite cavalry. By 1115, Aguda had enough power to declare the independent Jin, or Golden Dynasty. The neighboring Song dynasty formed a military alliance with the Jin to catch their mutual Khitan masters in a pincer movement and annihilate them. The campaign succeeded, but the Jurchens immediately realized their Song allies were militarily weak. Instead of honoring the borders, the Wanyan armies pushed south. In 1127, they sacked the Song capital of Kaifeng and seized control of northern China. Securing the territory proved straightforward compared to the demographic reality of what they had just won. This chart contrasts the tiny Jurchen population against 50 million conquered Chinese farmers. You can't manage a superpower using forest chieftains. To survive, the Jin adopted traditional Chinese bureaucracy, built a new script, and moved their capital south to Beijing. This assimilation tore the ruling class apart. When traditionalists resisted the shift toward a centralized monarchy, Prince Hailing initiated a ruthless purge, executing hundreds of his own relatives. Later rulers, like Emperor Shizong, saw their native culture vanishing and tried to artificially revive it by reinstating Jurchen songs, dances, and hunting traditions. The effort failed. The Jin state spent a century exhausted by border wars and a deep internal identity crisis. The ruling elite grew comfortable and disconnected from their military roots. By shedding their tribal cohesion to govern a bureaucracy, the Wanyan clan lost the edge that had brought them to power. When the Mongol armies breached the Great Wall, the Jin were unprepared. In 1234, the Golden Dynasty was wiped off the map. The Jin Empire died, but the Jurchen people survived. They remained in the northeastern forests for the next 400 years. A chieftain named Nurhaci, and later his son Hong Taiji, began reuniting the tribes. They studied exactly how the Jin had failed and identified a severe political liability. The name Jurchen was a brand liability. It was irreversibly tied to their history as subservient vassals to the ruling Ming dynasty. In 1635, Hong Taiji issued an unthinkable decree. He officially outlawed the name Jurchen, declaring that his people would wipe the historical slate clean and be known as the Manchus. This psychological reset severed their ties to a defeated past. United under a fresh identity, they streamlined their military into the 8-banner system, rode south, and established the Qing dynasty. The Jurchens proved that military might is only half the battle. To build one of history's largest empires, They were willing to assassinate their own identity in order to adapt and rule.